when I was working in sales at kind of the end of my career before my MBA, where I had no experience in sales. I learned heavily from that experience because A, had no clue about it and had to ramp up extremely fast. B, because it was tough boss and tough client, communication wasn't the best. So I learned what kind of an environment I actually want to be in versus what kind of an environment I don't actually thrive in. And also helped me understand what kind of a leader do I want to be, as I was working with with a different kind of boss who, let's say, wasn't as thankful, mostly thankless. So I would say an experience which was my worst actually ended up being my best when I look back because of the kind of learnings it gave me. I think MBA is what you make of it, and we've heard this over and over again that MBA is a means to an end and not an end in itself. Specifically chose McGill or Montreal because of the kind of experience that city and that school gave me, the kind of people that are there in the university, and the kind of ecosystem that is created there, which not only gives you opportunities, but also gives you an opportunity to enhance yourself as an individual, or if I can use the word, find yourself as an individual. So if you think about it, if you're just looking for a job, MBA may not be the best investment, because then you're going in with a different kind of expectation and you're not looking at the opportunity an MBA gives you to change yourself as an individual. So personally for me, MBA wasn't overhyped. When you have to kind of drive your own career, so that stress of driving your own career, that stress of figuring it out on your own, teaches you much more than even, let's say, all of the classes put together in an MBA. I was confused initially when I was applying for MBA schools because I picked Canada or started looking at Canada, was the fact that I did not want to be in a situation that I'd invested so much money and that it would not be easy for me to live in that kind of country. And I did not want to live in that stress as I was studying or as I was looking for opportunities in a certain area. Everybody I spoke to, and not just the university, also the city, it showed me a different perspective for some reason. It kind of helped me think a bit differently. And it helps, I would say, that Montreal also has a different language. People use French a lot in Montreal, which is a part of Quebec. So being in an area where you're being challenged not only on the basis of things you do or the people you meet, but also kind of challenged on the basis of language as well. So the kind of person you become is the kind of person I wanted to be, which is more flexible, more accommodating, more adapting, and at the same time working with diversity. And Montreal brought that diversity, and McGill brought that diversity to me. So I eventually decided that I would only apply to McGill in Canada, and then I was lucky enough to get through that school. And as you hear the story, if you see that there's no mention of jobs, there's no mention of salary, there's no mention of courses, for example, because somewhere in the process, I realized that actually will not have a long-lasting impact in my life and in my career as much as the soft skills, as much as the people I meet, as much as the communities I communicate with. So that was kind of the thought process I had. And I'm happy that I took that decision, because I lived in Montreal for 2 years and I moved to Toronto. A small cohort helped me learn how I could work with different kinds of people comfortably, as compared to not be comfortable around people from if I see some differences amongst each other. That, I think, was one of the biggest reasons, or learnings, sorry. I was a part of something called Hult Prize at McGill, which was a part of a larger initiative by Hult International Business School. where people could go in, small school startup companies could go in, compete for a $1 million prize in social entrepreneurship. So, as a part of risk, I'll tell you this one story where when I got it, initially I was toying between getting into consulting or getting into leadership development programs, because even when I was back in India, that's exactly what I wanted to do when I was working in the Tata Group. I wanted to get into a leadership development program. So those were my career objectives, so to say. And then a part of me also wanted to experiment with social entrepreneurship, because that's the kind of person I am. I genuinely have my heart in social entrepreneurship, but it's kind of an area where I don't know if I can actually grow as a career, grow in that area as a career or not. So I took a risk and I devoted a chunk of my time in social entrepreneurship, where I would help student startup companies uh, to pitch within McGill, and eventually pitch at regional competitions through this particular social entrepreneurship global competition. So my job was to create an ecosystem of social entrepreneurship across McGill University. Also helping mentor student startups, working with, like I said again, people from so many different backgrounds. Like I would not have had a chance to work with someone who's a doctor, to work with a chemical engineer, to help someone solve a problem in the immigration space, to help someone solve a problem in the food space, food scarcity space, or the small business space, for example. And that that experience is invaluable. That experience came out of some risk I took, some thought that I had, hey, maybe because I might want to do this sometime in the future, so maybe I should try it out. And I spent so much time on that, I spent so much energy on that, and I got much more back. Also came into Canada and I tried to understand the job market here. One of the things that I genuinely did not like about Canada was what I like to call a reset economy. It's a stupid way of saying it, but for immigrants, when you come into Canada, your past experience kind of resets. A lot of employers that you meet don't really consider your past experience as compared to someone, for example, who has Canadian experience, which for me was a shock, so to say. I'm actually working right now, and I speak to different people. I still don't get it, why a lot of people have that perspective that someone might not have Canadian experience, hence they're probably not the best fit for the role. So getting around that initially was kind of a pain, to understand how you could position yourself for different kind of roles despite not having a Canadian experience, and also then understanding fit eventually as you try to apply for jobs or you meet people. So those are the two things that I think I genuinely did not like, that why Canadians would do that on a large scale. For example, Canadian companies, for example. So this was about the time when I had actually moved out of Montreal. I'd moved into Toronto, and it was a new area. I was setting myself up. I was meeting a lot of different people. I had a good job. I had a job early in my MBA. You hear a lot about passion. You hear a lot about how people should find their passion and then pursue their passion. But there's almost no content out there which actually gives you directional, specific advice of how to find your passion. So I was also in the same space. I didn't know how to find my passion, for example. And in the process of finding it, I created a process which gives specific directional steps of how one could find their passion. As I was going through my career as well, I did not get genuine advice from a lot of people that I worked with. And secondly, that pushed me to self-mentor me a lot, to look for advice externally and as well look for advice internally, which is the self aspect of it that I started focusing a lot on myself as compared to looking for answers out there. And the third thing, I think, when I went to McGill, that kind of gave me the time to reflect on the things that I've done. The idea of the book is to help people understand how you can plan for and lead a successful career by focusing on three things. One is focusing on self. So, for example, a lot of people end up taking decisions which are born externally on the basis of different opinions out there, and then they internalize it and create actions and do things around it. I would rather want people to have things originate internally and then react on the basis of it. And I've tried to create a structure of how that could happen in a modern world where there's so much noise around us. And the second is structure. So you might have heard of this specific quote where how we plan to fail because we fail to plan. And I think this is still relevant in today's world where, because there's a lot of noise out there, it's extremely important to structure and plan for your career in a certain way rather than the career just happening to you. And the third is all of those things by managing expectations. I think expectation management is one thing that I don't think we learn from anywhere. I don't think schools talk a lot about expectation management. I don't think a lot of coaches talk about expectation management. But I believe that a lot of dissatisfaction or unhappiness happens mostly because people don't manage their expectations really well. So as we go through a certain person's career, I've tried to find a way where people can manage their expectations really well, because that I think will help people stay. And I'm really excited about it because it's not just the things that I want to share with people, because I think that's probably a good way of looking at your career and your life. But there's a lot of self-learnings that I've added to it, and I'm extremely excited to share all of those things with people.